Earlier this year, we kept seeing rumors of, Apple trying a new innovation, something new, and let's say a refreshed design. And as of September this year, during the Apple event, we got the ultimate announcement, which was the iPhone Air. Now, forget the press statement, forget the post on social media, forget everything you've been seeing about this phone. For a fact, the iPhone Air feels different in person, and trust me, in a few minutes, I'll show you why this is the best innovation from Apple yet. So for starters, the iPhone Air is the bit of engineering that we've all needed in a while. Now, trust me, you get a very nice device in a very nice compact body. And for a fact, this one feels effortlessly thin. Should I say one of the most thinnest devices I've used. And when it comes to thin devices, you expect compromises like, let's say, memory loss, let's say a reduced performance from the device or a very bad battery. But for a fact, the iPhone S seemed to prove, should I say, prove us wrong for the first time. Like Apple tend to prove us wrong for the first time. And with that, I introduce to you one of the best iPhones to be released yet in this generation. Now, I've had the iPhone Air for let's say 2 to 3 weeks right now, and the fact that I've not dropped a review yet was the fact that I actually wanted to test this one out and give a very honest and unbiased review of this device. And for a fact, I'm actually quite impressed with what I'm actually experiencing as of today. For starters, we'll go with the design of the iPhone Air. Let's say in about 10 years, this is one of the first designs that have actually blew my mind. Although the 16 came with a refreshed camera base, which actually made that one to stand out a little. But the iPhone Air, on the other hand, shares similarities with the iPhone XR because this one comes with a single camera lens at the back. But the way this camera lens was positioned at the back and at the titanium frame, it gave this one a different feeling. Let's say a very refined and a very nice feeling. I like how this one looks. I like the fact that this is very, very thin and very, very comfortable to carry on. But there's a bit of a downside, which is the fact that this one is very, very big. But consider the fact that the screen of this one is still very big, which is a 6.5-inch screen. This phone still feels light enough for you to not notice that, because most people tend to go for the base models of any series of iPhone coming out, or let's say the Pro models, which has this more smaller display, or let's say a more compact display. But the iPhone Air display is kind of big, sharing like let's say similarities with the Pro Max of other models. But the fact that it's still big is that this one still fits perfectly and the feel is very, very perfect. Now let's put in context. If you use the iPhone Air for a while, you'll not feel the need to like drop this device. Like let's say I'm kind of addicted to the fact that I want to hold my iPhone Air every minute. Now let me go back. Now let's put in context. This is my Pixel Pro phone and I've had this one for a while. Trust me, I actually love this device, but this device made me to miss the feeling of having a portable device. But for a fact, this device is still kind of light. I like how this one feels. Let's take the pouch off this first. Now, let's put in context. The Pixel Pro Fold, this is the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, actually shares a very similar comparison with the iPhone Air. It shares a display, the same display size, and I got to realize that the base of the Pixel Pro is actually thinner than the iPhone Air, which makes me think, will the Pixel actually give us something lighter than this in the future? But that aside, let's drop the Pixel inside and focus on this. Now, the point I'm actually trying to drive is the fact that I had this one for a very long time made me to feel, should I say, miss the feel of having a portable device. So when I grabbed the iPhone Air, I was like, damn, this one feels and looks good. But I don't get the passion online. That's why I had to say, forget what you see on social media, forget the press releases and everything. This phone feels different. The design of this phone is very, very nice. I like how this one feels on my hand. And having a case on this one just seems like, should I say, something you should not do, because this one was actually designed to go, let's say, should I say, frame without a case. It's very nice. I like how it feels without a case, but for added safety, you should get a case. Now let's move on to the battery of this one, which is the most controversial topic of the iPhone Air. For a fact, if you've used, let's say, an iPhone 13, if you've used an iPhone 14, or even if you've used an iPhone 15, the iPhone S, should I say, tend to put much effort on this battery. Now, I've had this one for a while, and whenever I charge to, let's say, 80% in the morning, because I do, the whole adaptive charging stuff, or adaptive battery rather, on iOS 26. Whenever I charge to around 80% in the morning and I go out, I tend to use this phone for a full day without having to charge it any longer. In fact, I actually made a video about this earlier, and I'll actually attach it, or you can actually go and watch it in my channel. Now, the battery of this one is very, very nice. I think the iPhone Air actually, should I say, in real life performance, is higher than what most people will expect. Now, if you charge this one, you don't tend to get significant battery drop as expected by many individuals, but Apple tend to give us an alternative, just the fact that you can get this one with an additional battery pack. But for a fact, I'm telling you that that won't be actually needed, except you, let's say during the day you tend to game a lot. But if you actually use this one for casual social media like screen through Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and others, you won't tend to experience the significant battery drain on this particular device. So I don't really get where the hate is coming from, and which makes me to ask, are people actually just angry about this, or should I say people don't just like the fact that they saw, should I say, misinformation on the internet? Rather, the battery of the iPhone Air still tends to put up. I like how the battery tends to last, and this one has the whole fast charging stuff. And for a fact, on real life testing, I actually tend to like charge, should I say, this phone gets full in, let's say, 30 to 40 minutes, depending on the charger you use, because so many people use very, very low branded chargers, which is actually a concern at this point. Now, the battery is nice, the design of this one is nice, but let's head on to the performance of the iPhone Air. Now, when it comes to the general performance on this one, I tend to, work with how the device feels for the average individual specifically. Now, for a fact, I've not seen any flaws when it comes to the performance of the iPhone Air. You can basically use this one to do anything, like anything. Like, for a fact, I've made this one my main device for a while, actually neglecting my Pixel Pro. Although this one is a performance, this one is a beast on its own, so let's just leave it aside. But I made this one my main device for the period of time that I was actually testing, and I'm very, very impressed, considering the fact that we're expecting a major flaw, let's say a major backdrop in the performance of this device. Apple still tend to like surprise us every time. Now, let's put in context. To me, as of today, I feel as if a mobile phone is now taking the role of a, let's say, a small computer in regards. Like, people tend to do everything on their mobile phone. People edit videos on their mobile phone. People tend to like edit pictures on their mobile phone. And if you're not type of the person that actually needs a keyboard, then your phone can actually do the job, and the iPhone Air actually does the job. Now, you can edit on CapCut on this phone, you can edit on Instagram edit, you can even get the new Premiere Pro mobile app on this one, and it will still perfect effortlessly. And how does it perform when it comes to gaming? Now, I'm kind of a heavy Call of Duty gamer, should I say, should I categorize myself in that gaming? I play Call of Duty mobile a lot, and a little bit of PUBG, but I'm not a fan of PUBG. And Call of Duty Mobile can be seen like a very high, should I say, high risk mobile game as of this point. This one plays Call of Duty Mobile effortlessly on high graphics, like the highest graphics you can actually think about, which just makes it make sense. Now, you've got a device that can play Call of Duty, you've got a device that works for CapCut, you got a device that works for Instagram edit, and you got a device that still has, let's say, an average battery life as of today. What else do you need? Although this phone has its flaws, and we get to that, which is quite annoying, especially if you're from the part of this world that I am. It has a very big flaw. But regardless, everything on this device still makes absolute sense. Like, you could use this one for your casual daily activities without noticing anything, which just makes it make sense. And as I said, majority of the people who are actually buying this phone are average users. If you are kind of, let's say, a heavy multitasker, you actually go for the Pro, or let's say the Pro Max models. But anybody who's getting this one is just the average mobile phone user. So what else do you need? Everything on this phone, as regards the performance, makes absolute sense. But when it comes to performance, now you look at the battery life. So performance aside, how does the iPhone's Air performance combined with display feel? Now, you need to know that this one is actually peaked at 120 hertz, and the display of this device just Makes absolute sense. Like I mentioned earlier, the display of this one is actually large. It's a 6.5-inch display, which is the same display you get on the Google Pixel Pro 9, as you can see. It's actually the same display you get on this. But how does it pair with the performance of this device? Now, if you're using the display of the iPhone Air, you don't need to worry about anything. Forget the fact that this phone is thin. The display on this one is very nice. And my reviews are actually centered at, should I say, people who just want a typical review, not the one who go into like the tech and, the advanced stuff. Now, when it comes to the display of this one combined with its performance, the display of this phone is very nice. The refresh rate on this one is very nice. If you're scrolling through Instagram or let's say any social media at all, you won't tend to, notice any lags. It just keeps on going. Like, damn, this one is very, very nice, to be very honest with you. I'm not actually hyping this one at this point, but let me just tell you the truth. I'll still mention its flaws towards the end of the video. Now, the display syncs very well with the performance. Gaming on this one with the display is still very, very nice. It still feels very nice. The refresh rate of this one is nice. I like how big the display is on this one. Considering the fact that the display is still big and I see it integrates well with the design of this one, makes absolute sense, like I mentioned earlier in the video. Everything feels very, very, very okay. So if you're considering, does the display lag or anything like that, the display on the iPhone Air is still superb. And basically, you will get, this is what you get on any iPhone, should I say any pro model of iPhone, because I actually use the iPhone 15 Pro Max, I've used the iPhone 14 Pro Max, even the 13 Pro Max, and even the 11 Pro Max. The display on this one is actually very nice compared, or should I say combined with its performance. But now this brings us to the flaw of this device. Number one is the connectivity. Now, if you're on the part, should I say if you are from a part of this world like where I'm from, which is Nigeria, the fact that this one supports eSIM only is a very big disadvantage. Now, in Apple's bid to, create the tiniest iPhone yet, Apple tend to, let's say omit some certain stuff from this phone. They try to like remove certain things from this phone, certain hardware from this phone. And number one is the fact that this phone does not use a physical SIM. Okay, now you should know that when it comes to the device in general, the region of the device actually determines the kind of SIM that the device uses. So most of the iPhones, or should I say all iPhones that are actually sold to the US, use eSIM. Why the ones that are sold in China, let's say mainland China or Europe and France, actually have physical SIM. That is one physical SIM, one eSIM, or dual physical SIMs. Now, on the iPhone Air, this one was excluded. All the iPhone Air came with eSIM. So most of the iPhone Air, you get the region of LLA. But how does that affect you generally? Now, you need to know that from where I come from, you're actually limited to this whole eSIM stuff. Like, it's quite hard to get an eSIM for your device. You have to go to your carrier, go through one or two process for them to convert your physical SIM into an eSIM. And trust me, this one can be quite heartbreaking and kind of stressful. Now, let's take in context. Since I got this phone for about 2 weeks up until today, I've not had a SIM card on it. I still trying to use my Wi-Fi, and since I have another device, I can actually go out to this one and use the Wi-Fi on, should I say, the hotspot on that device. But not everybody have the luxury of having multiple devices, and some people just want this particular device. So if you're actually going to get this one, you should consider you have to go through that whole eSIM problem. And it's also a problem because the carrier network from where I come from and from other places, mostly in Africa, don't tend to be reliable. So most people tend to, should I say, switch their SIM from time to time. Let's say from MTN to Airtel. That is like AT&T, where you guys are from in the US and stuff like that. So it's not that, should I say, versatile. It's actually a problem. And the second flaw is the speaker. Now, the iPhone Air comes with a mono speaker. It does not come with a stereo speaker. So basically, the speaker of the iPhone Air is at the top right here. The speaker of this one is at the top right here, which is kind of a problem. You don't have a, should I say, a speaker at the bottom like you get from most devices like this one, even iPhone 12 and previous iPhone models. Even the iPhone Pro and Pro Max model comes with stereo speakers. So basically, if you're the type of person that goes to an urban environment most of the time, you will tend to get flaws on the fact that if you are trying to listen to a podcast, or let's say you're watching a video on social media or anything like that, the speaker does not really put up. But most people that can actually afford an iPhone Air can afford, let's say, AirPods, or let's say wired earpiece rather, which is a great add-on. But there are still people who don't use AirPods or wired earpiece should I say, in this world or anything like that. Although I don't know people who don't like AirPods, but I've actually seen people who don't like AirPods. So that one can be, let's say, a significant problem, or let's say a problem for you in the future. The fact that this one has only one speaker and does not have dual speakers, which is a stereo speaker. Aside from that, this is one of the best phones you can actually get as of today. One of the thinnest device, one of the most compactable device, and one of the most innovative device yet from Apple. Now, I still tend to wrap my head around the fact that how were they able to put all this in a device that is this thin? Now, let's put in context. This device, they managed to put this device in everything in the screen of the Google Pixel 9 Pro phone. Like I said, let's do a direct comparison right here so that you can see. It's the same, like everything is the same, like the inch is the same, but now you need to consider the fact that the Google Pro phone has another bezel which I can actually fit the battery and all, should I say, every other thing in. But the Apple was able to fit everything in just one bezel, which is kind of crazy. Although I saw a techno device that actually is as slim as the iPhone Air, but you cannot compare a techno device to an iPhone. Actually, you can never compare a techno device to an iPhone. Not in this world, not in the next world, not anytime soon. Like, they are kind of wacky and very, very. Let's not go to the techno aspect right now. Let's focus on the iPhone Air. Apple was able to combine all this into a very slim device that is compatible for everybody except for us that have the eSIM problem. But that aside, how does the camera of the iPhone Air perform? Now, when it comes to the camera of the iPhone Air, up until today, I'm still very, very, very impressed. I like how the camera of the iPhone Air performs. I like the fact that this one comes with, multiple features, especially the fact that on the selfie, you can now take pictures like, let's say, you can now take this whole picture, is it the landscape mode, without actually having to like turn your camera or turn your phone like this. So basically, this mode is one of the most impressive modes I've actually seen on the iPhone as of today, and I'm very, 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 should I say, very, very interested in this particular one. I'm not the type of person that takes pictures all the time, but this one just makes absolute sense to me. I like how it feels. Aside from that, the camera of the iPhone Air, if you ask me, let's say you are a general iPhone user. Now, let's put this in context. We're always talking about general iPhone users. I sell phone and I know what my customers tend to like when it comes to the camera of their devices. So if you're a general iPhone user, there's nothing different from the camera of this phone with the Pro and the Pro models. This one can actually shoot everything you can, actually everything you want. You can shoot HD at irs, you can shoot 4K at up to 60 fps, but everything just makes sense. You also have the whole dual capture stuff where you tend to like, you can like record both the front camera and the back camera at the same time, which just makes sense to me. Although this has been actually available to some Android devices over the years, but you actually have that now on the iPhone. Everything here makes absolute sense. So except from the fact that, let's say you want to shoot, let's say like the ProRes, Apple ProRes and every other stuff, which many of you won't need, to be honest with you. If you are not like a content creator, you won't need that. There's a very high chance that you will never use the ProRes if you're not a content creator. In fact, if I say 100 people buy an iPhone, only 10 people from 100 tend to use the ProRes feature, which is, should I say, Apple is not actually creating a phone for content creators at this point, but creating a device everybody can use. So if you're not a content creator, let's say you're not a heavy user on, let's say, camera and stuff like that, if you just want to take your daily pictures for your family, or you want to take a picture of your dog at a given moment, or your cat or anything, trust me, this one works out. Like, the single lens camera on this one works out. Now there's a flaw to this camera which I actually don't like, and to be very fair with you, I was kind of disappointed, which is the fact that the telephoto, the lens on this one cannot go as low as 0.5. Actually, I'm a fan of 0.5, especially when I'm shooting in my car, or let's say I want to take a picture of, where I am on my car. That one was kind of a problem. But aside from that, you can still zoom up to, let's say 10x on the iPhone Air, which just tell me, let's be frank and let's be honest. Which ordinary individual, let's say, let's say, which ordinary person wants to use anything apart from 10x zoom? Let's say, even Samsung, when they came up with that, their whole 21x zoom and everything like that, how many people actually use that feature on their Samsung? So let's do with real practicability, not what the numbers can do, or not, let's say, all those fancy things that they add on these phones to like try to convince us to buy these phones. The camera of this one will serve your daily needs. It will serve anything you want to do, which just makes sense. So up until now, apart from the eSIM problem and the speaker problem, I've still not seen anything wrong with the iPhone Air, which just contradicts everything everyone says online. Like, what's bad about this phone? I really want to know what's bad about this phone. For a fact, I feel as if this is a beast in, how did they even put it? Did I say a wolf in a sheep clothing? Like, getting with me, this is the most perfect device Apple has made in years. Because to be very fair with you, from the 15 to the 16 to the 17 Pro Max, to me, I just recycled designs and recycled frame, chip and all those, because they still do anything that your 16, your 15 Pro Max can do, your 17 Pro Max can do. Like, prove me wrong. But yeah, this is the most innovative device Apple has made in years, which is quite fascinating. So yeah, the battery of this phone is 100% for me. The camera is also 100% for me because I've not seen anything I cannot do with the camera. The display is very nice. The processor is very nice. This one handles games quite easily and quite frankly, which is also a top-notch experience. Apart from that, apart from the speaker and the eSIM problem, then man, you got yourself a beast, an absolute beast of a device. But what can I say? This is the best one. So as regards the battery flow, which everybody seems to claim, but I don't actually see that in the, I don't see that flow where I was using this one. You can get a battery pack to serve as an added advantage for you. But trust me, you won't need that battery pack. You won't need to charge this phone every time. Okay, now let's put in context. If you are from a part of this world that you get refurbished or recycled devices, let's say like the iPhone 13, the iPhone 12, and the iPhone 11, you get a battery health of around, let's say, battery service that is 75, 78, 79, and let's say highest 80. My guy, trust me, that's the same battery life you get on the iPhone Air. So why are you bad mouthing this one, to be very honest with you? Although this one does not come with the whole vacuum chamber cooling stuff like that, but I was actually expecting this phone to overheat from gaming, and that one still shocked me. Like, bro, this phone does not overheat. In fact, while I was using the iPhone 15 Pro Max, that phone tends to overheat more than the iPhone Air, which is quite surprising. Like, just make it make sense to me, which is quite surprising. But I don't advise you to actually downgrade from your, let's say, your Pro Max model to the iPhone Air, because if you use a Pro Max model, you still get those whole ProRes kind of thing. But even if you don't use those whole ProRes stuff, trust me, guy, it's still a good buy because you get a very, very, should I say, refined perspective towards iPhone. So yeah, the iPhone Air is a beast of a machine, and for just, let's say, $1,000, this one makes absolute sense. That's around 1.5 million in Nigeria. Although I've seen that the fact that the prices of these devices are trying, should I say, actually dropping. So up until today, as of today, you can get this one for around 1.5 million to, let's say, 1.6 million naira. But if you're not from the part of this world, this one goes for around $1,000. So yeah, the price is still kind of ridiculous because trust me, Apple don't tend to give us, budget friendly devices. They just give us really, really expensive devices. But with time, I still feel as if the price of this one will come down. Should I say the price of this one will drop? But in context, I want to put it to you that this phone has not been represented well. Even Apple did not represent this phone well, if you ask me. They did not tell us what this phone can actually do. So if you have not tested this one, or you are actually having a contradiction to pick the iPhone Air, this is a sign that you should go to the market or go to wherever you buy your phones today and get an iPhone Air. And if you like this video, do also like, comment, and also subscribe for more. This is a very user-friendly review, should I say, from my own perspective as an ordinary user of an iPhone. to you. If I should make a more detailed review about the specs later, I'll actually make a review that covers, all those numbers. I'm not a fan of numbers. I'm actually a fan of real life testing, to put it to the audience, to my real life audience, to people who don't know about all these numbers, how this phone works. And for a fact, I can tell you that apart from the speaker problem and the eSIM problem, especially if you're from the part of this world like me, if you're in the US, the eSIM is not a problem at all, because that's how you guys actually do it. But if I'm from part of this world like me and you don't have a problem getting an eSIM, the iPhone Air is one of the best refined phones you can get in the market today for the price. So yeah, my name is Yus. Catch you in the next one.